What do you think makes a person want to be free? How can someone who does not know what freedom is, never seen it, never tasted it, all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be free?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Like that's just the way I think many of us were born, and it's hard to explain. Maybe if we have like a very long conversation and brainstorm on this topic, we'll get somewhere. But if you ask me a question like why me and so many Ukrainians want to be free from Russia and their government, why wouldn't we just be complacent like Russian people? I cannot explain. Like we cannot be ruled by them, and there is nothing like in Ukraine, we have this saying that better death than not being free. I'd rather be dead, but I will not I will not be someone's slave or under someone's rule.
I wish I wish you and I could come up with a solution or answer on what makes someone want to be free. Because when you hear it, it makes sense. Anybody would rather be free than be a slave. Because who wants to be a slave? No one. It's not a conscious choice any single person would make, whether they are living in a free country or non-free country. But perhaps one of the things that can help us understand this is the term slave, because words, like we talked about earlier, have a huge meaning behind them. So when you constantly call the living conditions as good, or you live in the greatest country in the world, you have everything you need, like when you're constantly using those positive adjectives, maybe your mind gets so confused that you don't really make a conclusion that maybe where you're living is a terrible place. Like when you're in an abusive relationship, for instance.
Because you don't know any better, right?
Right. And even if everybody who you love will tell you, hey, you should leave this guy. He's abusive, he gaslights you, he's a terrible person, but you don't. Because I see Russian people in Russia being almost like being in an abusive, horrible relationship
With their
for
government.
centuries.
Exact. I mean, okay, another thing where I get triggered when, oh yeah, Russian people are not guilty, it's the government. Well, not really. Um, you're still that one family, right? You are still responsible for the actions of your government. That's my opinion. So to like just to talk about freedom, right? For some people, maybe freedom is not that good because it's easier to wake up and be being told what to do, what to think. So being
Wow.
free is a responsibility. You need
Wow.
to accept the consequences of being free because you no one will tell you what to do. You will have to figure that out by yourself.
I think we're getting somewhere. That is an incredible observation. Being free comes with responsibility of deciding what you're going to do for yourself.
And making a lot of mistakes along the way and facing a lot of risks because it's so much uncertainty. Like, let's say, like I am free to choose who I want to be, but it's a responsibility. Will I be good at that? Will I have enough willpower to become good at it? Will I quit halfway? Like, will I just like figure it out? Um, right in this world. But this is if we talk on a personal level, how this whole thing works on a national level, like on a country level, that's a mystery to me, which, like I said, my personal theory, something that's like encoded in your DNA, like the voice of your ancestors. Um, an example of that was the language, right? Like our language carries so much of our history just by what associations words have, how you use words, like what sayings and idioms you have in your language. This tells you a lot about your history. So on this example was like what made so much noise in Ukrainian media recently when these feminine, I don't know the English word for it, feminative words.
I'm not sure, girl. English is my third language too.
But anyways, these words were gender specific, like made so much noise because people were saying that it's not natural for them to hear those words because they started to create words or look for those words like from some old fashioned words. So some people were saying like, um, this like режет слух. This
Ah,
like this doesn't sound natural to.
sit well with you. Yeah, it doesn't sound natural.
And then there's this very famous like writer, Ukrainian writer, and she wrote this huge post and she provided examples why it doesn't sit well with you. And then she was brutal in that post. She was like, that's because you're so influenced by the Russian culture that when I tell you that this profession is a woman, you immediately think that it's of a lower quality. Now, let me tell you this. In Ukrainian language, if you look at the words, like typical words, if you're in Ukrainian language, do you notice that we don't have bad associations with that word? We have absolutely neutral association, whether it's a man or a woman. Now she's like, back to your point, the reason why it doesn't sit well with you because you've been reading too much of Russian literature. She was brutal, and that caused so much, like that post caused so much attention. And but I loved everything she said in that post, and it just proved the point again how important our language is and how smart Russian propaganda actually is, because the first thing they do, they want to cancel your language. They want you to forget it because that's your identity. They want you to forget who you really are.
Um,
I'm not gonna deny that they are smart. Like their propaganda is smart and it's very difficult to fight, but we need to be smarter.